yeah, I did that. I was a manager at Thornton's for about a year and a half, and then I got on the police department. I didn't get on until I was 27. I already had 3 kids.
Oh, wow.
That was a huge advantage too, though, because I was already kind of settled. I don't mean financially settled. I mean settled in life as far as there wasn't any running around with the boys after work, going to, drinking, doing all the stuff that a lot of these guys do. Because one of the things I push when I talk to people, especially young cops, man, do not make your friend circle all cops. It's horrible. You see guys do that. So you're dealing with all this negative environment at work, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, whether it be from the public or your administration. It's there. Negative, 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 negative. So then what do these guys do after work? They go hang out with guys from work. And what do they talk about? All the work stuff. Negative, negative, negative. So then 16-hour your day is negative. You go home, go to bed, and repeat. And then you're a miserable, negative person.
So you got to ask yourself, why do you want to do this? What keeps you motivated to stay proactive and get bad guys off the street?
The facts is a big cannon against a little tiny gun of opinions, because we've all heard people give us their opinions.
Let's talk about how easy it is to get narcotics in this country. Once they're in this country, anywhere within 2 days, the drugs will be in our cities.
Because we know knowledge is power.
John Mattingly, a distinguished 21-year veteran of the Louisville Police Department in Kentucky, dedicated most of his career to serving narcotics and violent crime units with the goal of enhancing the quality of life for the citizens of his beloved city. On March 13, 2020, Mattingly gained national attention when he sustained injuries during the execution of a search warrant at the residence of Breonna Taylor. The ensuing events, marked by widespread protests and global scrutiny, were further intensified by the subsequent death of George Floyd. The perceived lack of transparency from both the police department and the city allowed unfounded speculation and misinformation to proliferate through the various channels, including mainstream and social media celebrities. Mattingly seeks to provide a factual account of the incident in his national bestseller book, 12 Seconds in the Dark. John has transformed his tragedy into triumph by dedicating himself to travel the country, where he educates and inspires individuals from all walks of life on the crucial topics of leadership, resiliency, and personal triumph. In addition to his professional endeavors, Mattingly has been married to his wife, Nikki, for 18 years and is a dedicated family man with 4 children and 2 grandchildren.
I'm Kenny from Beyond the Barrel. I appreciate you joining me on the podcast.
Yeah, man.
I think I'm more or less joining you now, though. I'm at your parents' house, so it's a unique. We're missing the barrel, but I think it's still going to be a good interview.
New one for both of us. So.
Right, man. Yeah, it's cool. I appreciate you taking out the time of your day to have us on. I'm excited about this. So from this point, we're kind of going to take a step back and kind of just, let you talk about yourself. I don't want to talk about the law enforcement stuff. Let's talk about like where you grew up, everything. Where'd you grow up? Do you have any siblings? What you did as adolescent, all the way up until like maybe high school, and then I'll kind of ask some more questions about that.
So when I was small, my dad's been a pastor my entire life. I'm 51. He was a pastor, I think, 3 years before that. So 54 years. He's been a pastor. So I grew up in church. And when they moved from Bowling Green down into Louisville, then I was born. And then in 1977, I believe it was, we moved let me back up. My first 4 years, we were in an area that had white flight. In other words, the black community moved in, the whites moved out. And during that time, he had a church in this area. And everybody urged him, you got to get out of the inner city, man. You got to get out of the inner city because things are happening. You'll never grow here. You'll never draw the crowd from the outside. The money will never be here. People won't give. People just scared to come to that end of town. And the thing that impressed me was he always told them, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. That's the first taste I got of reaching out and helping people like we do in law enforcement. So I was able to see that firsthand my entire life. And when we were 4 years old, we moved from that end to just a few miles away because he actually outgrew that church. People were wrong, proved him wrong. Started out at 65, went to a couple hundred. They had to move locations because he'd outgrown it. Actually bought an old Catholic convent called Maryhurst for troubled girls. And it was 11 acres, again, right in the middle of the ghetto. And so that's where I was born and raised my entire life. I got to see crazy things, stuff that, a lot of kids don't see that don't live in those ends of town. But I was also somewhat sheltered. We were able to see the life, but didn't live the life.
Okay.
So it was pretty neat. I got to see both sides of the fence.
Yeah. That's
live in a neighborhood where chaos and tragedy happened a lot, but protected also because we were so involved in church and helping people and doing bus routes in those areas, bringing kids in, children's churches. And so I did that my entire life growing up. I have 3 older sisters, so I was the baby. I always got treated like the baby, so I get that, that advantage on my side. My sisters always joke, that I'm the favorite, and I would agree. But so I had a great life growing up as far as very stable home life, my foundation in church and God. And so that really helped me, I think, when I came on the police department later on in life.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, me looking objectively, I think that the city that you worked in and the environment you grew up in, you got to see both ends of the spectrum. And I think a lot of cops, a lot of cops kind of have, if you don't, for me, example, I was arrested when I was 22 years old, and I got to see that aspect of it. I grew up in a very small family, very close to it, very protected. But then you get to have more empathy and more understanding if you start to see other aspects of society.
What kind of does it, what you're trying to do to the public here, make us human,
Yeah,
and
we're
relatable.
Yeah.
It's the same thing there. If you haven't been involved in that or seen that side of it, it's hard to come from a middle to upper class family, go to college, get out at 22, get sworn in as a police officer, and then they throw you in that environment,
Right.
and you don't have any understanding or any empathy for it. You just look at them as criminals.
Right.
And I could see that difference when I was on the police department. I could
That's
tell
awesome.
the guys who grew up like we did, as opposed to the guys who were never introduced to that in life. And the interactions with the public was night and day.
So were you able to communicate a lot better?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
the same.
100%.
Same with me. Like I feel you see people and they go to the academy at a very young age. They don't have a lot of life experience. They don't have a lot of worldly experience, and all of a sudden they're dealing with everyone from all around the world, all around the country, and different economic statuses. You're dealing with millionaires, and you're dealing with people that are homeless, and it's just, I think, as law enforcement, if we focus more on not trying to get people in the door at such a young age and people with more lively experience, I guess, I think it would be more beneficial for the career in general.
Yeah, I tell you, one of the best classes I ever had on the department in as far as a in-service class. Nobody likes in-service class, right?
Mm.
Hate it. You just want to go through it, get through it, go home. But usually that's because they're not offering the things that are really practical and applicable to the street. So we had one year, it was diversity training. And I thought, oh man, here we go. I can't stand this stuff, because the stuff you're fed normally is so far from what you're going to use. It's just all these talking points and
Right.
bashing you, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was different, though. We had a black guy come in, and he gave us some of their culture and why sometimes people react the way they do. For instance, we had, when I first came out, I think it was 6 housing projects in Louisville. They've all been torn down now and scattered housing and all that. But anyway, he was talking about, like, when you show up to a shooting at the projects, you know how it is. There's a couple hundred people that are surrounding your scene and screaming and chaos, and especially the women, man, they'll be screaming. You think they're mad at you because they're yelling and they're hyper and they're all this stuff. He's like, no, man, that's just the black culture, the way black females respond in these situations. They're not mad at you. They're upset at the situation. So just ride it out with them. Don't take it personal. And some of those just talking points that he gave in that class was like, and hopefully, again, that's what you can do on this podcast, is make us more human to the people that we deal with.
That's the goal, hopefully. I think just having that open mindset of understanding. A lot of people come in so closed-minded, and they don't even want to grasp that ability to be so open-minded, to understand other people's perspectives and have a lot of empathy when it comes to police work. I also learned, like, I come from I guess, what is it, a blended family.
Mm-hmm.
So on my mom's side of the family, I had like 3 siblings, and it was always loud and very boisterous in the house. So in order for me to be heard, I had to be loud.
Right.
But then I go back to my dad's house where I was raised, and I was only go to my mom's on like visitations or whatever. I go back to my dad's house. This is me and my dad. So I go back to my dad's house, and I'm speaking at that high tone. He's like, "Why are you always yelling?" I'm like, I'm not yelling." Like,
Yeah.
And it took me a while to understand that. But then when it came to police work, I understood that. So if you come to a chaotic household where there's a bunch of kids, in order to be heard, you got to talk loud. It's not that they're yelling at
They're
you.
just conditioning.
Yeah. So
it is.
so like me coming from, kind of like, I guess it's called a blended family or whatever, where my mom and dad were divorced. It was very interesting to see both dynamics and how well that transitioned into law enforcement. Let's go back. So at what point, what kind of stuff did you do in high school? So you grew up there your entire life, like
Yep. In Louisville.
a little to high school or even beyond.
Yeah. So our church had a Christian school,
Oh, okay.
and so it was K through 12.
Nice.
So fortunately, I was able to stay with that the whole time. My older sisters, it wasn't that way yet, so they went to different schools.
Okay.
But then by the time I was there, I was able to stay there, play basketball. Um, just, I mean, our youth department kept us so busy to keep us out of trouble. It was awesome. They always had us working, always had us helping people, always some kind of project in the tank that just kept us so preoccupied and busy. We didn't have time to go out in the world and get into a lot of things, that could
Yeah,
bump
yeah.
us down the road.
So with it, was that like a private school, like to
Yeah.
pay it, or
No, it's
okay?
private school.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay, all right.
Yeah, and that's a big thing here in Kentucky now. They're trying to push the vouchers, and the government's pushing back against it. Oh, it'll harm our school systems. I'm thinking, no, man, it frees up the ability for people to have their kids, taught however they want.
Yeah, yeah.
And your tax money is going toward your kids and not just to a system that just flushes it down and the poor results that are coming out.
So K through 12 in the same school.
Yeah, same school all the way through. Same type friend base all the way through.
Okay.
So, yeah, I was fortunate, man. It was, you want to call it a sheltered life, but again, I was fortunate in the area we lived that while I was in this bubble, I was able to. It's kind of like a hamster in a ball, right? I'm seeing everything around me, but I just
Okay.
didn't have access to it. So it was kind of
It's like a fishbowl type thing,
Yeah.
like, but you're on the
It was-
inside of a fishbowl.
yeah. I was safe.
I
Now,
got
there were
you.
some kids that in the same environment I was in still drifted out and did things. So the opportunities were there, but just not as many.
I think, I mean, in any environment, if kids want to go down that path, I think they have
They're
an
gonna do it.
opportunity, and then they'll do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, any sports or anything along those lines? What'd you do?
Basketball.
Okay.
Basketball. Played baseball when I was real little, and then we didn't have that grown anymore. Played softball, obviously, as an adult, but basketball in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you're in that school, are you guys part of like divisions or
It was-
conferences or anything?
Well, there's
like
actually private school leagues.
that? Okay.
Yeah, that aren't part of it's called KHSAA here with the Kentucky High School Association, Athletic Association. So we weren't part of that. We were in private leagues
And that,
that were other schools like ours, our
Okay.
like size, like type, all over the state.
so similar to like the public schools and like classes or
Right,
whatever. I
same
don't know how
thing.
we, in Indiana, we have like class 1 to like 6 or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's very similar. Right on. Did you excel in sports? Were you
Oh, yeah.
competitive?
Yeah, that's
All right.
good.
All right.
It sounds cocky, but I mean,
Your dad's sitting over there, so I was
Yeah.
looking to see if you acknowledged if you're good or not. But yeah, so all right. Is that school, that church, everything still in play?
yeah,
or-
it
Okay.
is. Yeah.
And then
I'll be
Yeah.
there Sunday.
all right, on that. Does say dad still pastor?
Not there.
Okay.
Now he's retired from that. He travels and preaches now.
Oh, that's awesome. That's amazing. So your whole life grew up in the church.
Yeah.
All right.
Haven't always gone to church. Haven't always been a good Christian, but
Yeah, I think we all fell at some point during that. All right. Then college or
yeah. I went to University of Louisville. Couldn't
Okay.
stand it because I'm not kidding. The first class I went into was a science class, and I'm sitting in there. There's probably 300 or 400 kids in this auditorium. This girl over here's got a little boombox playing music. Kid over here is eating food. I mean, it was just not what I was used to. It wasn't a small structured environment. It was just like people did whatever they wanted, and the instructors didn't care.
yeah. So
Next class, next. It was in and out. So I left there. I did the community college in town for another semester. So I got my first year in locally, and then I went to a Christian college and graduated from that.
okay, the Christian high school probably had a lot more structure than.
Oh yeah,
And then as soon as you go to, it's like a lot of freedom and yeah, I could only imagine that was almost like a culture shock. Yeah.
oh yeah, big
Okay.
time.
What'd you get a degree in?
Church administration.
Really?
Yeah,
Do you have aspirations to follow? No. No. All right. Just
I'm gonna
curious.
just do it on a person to person level.
Okay, that's very cool. With all that, how is your ability to communicate in general? Like, are you very outgoing, or are you introverted,
I'm
extroverted?
like an introverted extrovert.
Okay.
Like I can talk to anybody. I can blend like a chameleon. I can go and talk to rich people, poor people, black, white. It doesn't matter, and fit in. But it's if I have to do it.
Okay.
I prefer not to. I think that becomes with being a cop for so long. After a while, you start pulling away from because you're doing 8, 10, 12 hours a day with the negative of society.
Yeah.
And then when you're done, you're just like, I just want to check out.
Yeah.
Because like even now, like people call and say, hey, why don't you do this on this date? And it sounds like a great idea. It's fun. And as that date approaches, I'm like, man, why did I commit to that? I really. And when I go do it, I have a great time and I'm glad I did it. But leading up to that, I'm just like, I'd rather stay home.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
my wife pulls me out of my shell because I'm the same way. Like, but I'm not very. I did one of those tests where I don't know what it is, but I came back as like introverted and like my personality trait like identified with like 58% of females like very. I was like interesting. So like me traveling to do this, me traveling to speak in front of classes, like it takes a lot out of me. Like I'm I get gassed. If I
Oh,
go
yeah.
talk, yeah, like I'm like, my wife's like, "Why are you so tired?" When I'm like,
It
dude,
is exhausting.
it's like I'm getting hyped up to go play sports, like, and it's an adrenaline dump for a good 6 to 8 hours while I'm speaking, and then afterwards it's just like flatline.
Yeah, because the whole time you're speaking, you're having to concentrate. You're having to make sure you're not, saying double the same thing over and over. But then in breaks and before and after, people are coming up talking to you, asking you a ton of questions and this and that. So yeah, it's a mind suck, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
All right, and then we'll talk a little bit about, so after college, what did you do?
Well, I got married at 19
Okay,
to my first wife.
all
I got
right,
married twice. Got married at 19. She was 18. And we started a cleaning business.
Okay.
So we did that for a few years.
like home clean.
Yes, like home
Okay,
cleaning.
oh, okay,
Yeah, I did that for a few years. She became pregnant. So we got rid of that, gave it to a friend. I went and worked. I ended up working at Thornton's, which is a gas station, as a manager.
okay.
Until I worked at the church for, I don't know, 2.5, 3 years. Coached basketball there, did the grounds, did stuff like that. It just didn't pay enough, so I went to Thornton's because I knew I was going to be a cop. That's what I always wanted to be. Even in my high school yearbook, I wanted to be a police officer. That's what I
Okay,
wanted.
very cool.
So even as a kid, you play cops and robbers, or
Mhm.
cowboy in Indiana, or couldn't be a cowboy in Kentucky, so might as well be a
Oh,
cop.
there's a bunch of horses.
Yeah, well, not the kind you can ride, not the kind you and I can ride. So, yeah, I did that. I was a manager at Thornton's for about a year and a half, and then I got on the police department. I didn't get on until I was 27. I already had 3 kids.
Oh wow.
That was a huge advantage too, though, because I was already kind of settled. I don't mean financially settled. I mean settled in life, as far as there wasn't any running around with the boys after work, going to, drinking, doing all the stuff that a lot of these guys do. Because one of the things I push when I talk to people, especially young cops, man, do not make your friend circle all cops. It's horrible. You see guys do that. So you're dealing with all this negative environment at work, 8, 10, 12 hours a day, whether it be from the public or your administration. It's there. Negative, 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 negative. So then what do these guys do after work? They go hang out with guys from work. And what do they talk about? All the work stuff.
Yeah.
Negative, negative, negative. So then 16-hour your day is negative. You
Yeah.
go home, go to bed, and repeat. And then you're a miserable, negative person. But if you keep all these people on your outside, your grounding base, then it's huge. Because like the event I went through, the cops were too busy for me. They were stuck in protest for almost a year. So it's not like I could, hey man, I need you tonight. No, they had families too. They're working 12, 14-hour days. They couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So I had my entire friend base that I'd kept for all these years, and that paid off.
Friends
Huge
through like high
dividends.
school and everything.
Couple, yeah.
Yes.
But
I-
mostly I met a lot of them through my wife. Now we've been together 20, 21 years. Been married 18 of them, 18 of them. And a lot of our friends have just kind of over the years meshed together and
Very cool.
become one huge group.
I have a close group of high school friends that we've stayed together the whole time, and it's very rare. I mean, we live all over the country and stuff. One thing that keeps us together is like playing fantasy football.
Yeah.
So every year I have them over on Labor Day and we do our draft. So it's cool, like having that close of like 10 friends
Right.
that I've known since 6th grade.
And guys are so great because I cannot see a guy for a year and you pick up
Oh yeah.
right where you left him.
We start,
It's-
yeah. As
it's-
soon as they come in, we start making fun of each other, and
Yeah.
like no time's missed. It's cool, and I completely agree there. I do have friends that are cops,
We all
but
do. You
yeah,
work with them.
yeah, I have to, and I love them all. But it's also when I leave work, sometimes I don't want to talk about work, and it is very hard when you're in a circle of a bunch of cops that not talk about cop
Yeah,
shit.
almost impossible.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. My wife always gets on me about it. There's no doubt about it. Like we're like, one of my best friend is a cop. So when us four are together, they're like, still talking about cop shit? I'm like, yep. Like it never fails.
It's hard to turn off.
Yeah,
It
and
is.
I've known him since I was in 6th grade, and it's still like,
So you knew each other outside of police?
yeah, before like years and years, but we still just talk about cop shit.
Yeah.
It's crazy to me. So that 7 years kind of manager at Thornton's, kids,
Mm-hmm.
all boys, all girls.
I had 2 girls and a boy.
Okay.
Boy was the youngest, like me.
All right.
Then when I remarried, had another boy.
All right. And then during that time, what were you doing for fun? Like, what's your pastime?
Well, during those earlier years, it was jujitsu, softball, rec league basketball. So I played that up until I was probably 35, 40. My body finally was like, yeah, you're done, man. You keep pulling
Okay, so-
hamstrings
yeah.
and calves and doing certain things. So actually, that's when I kind of transitioned over to like jujitsu for a while because it was still a sport I could do that, you're still going to get hurt, especially when you get the wild guys in there that want to rip your head off. But it's still a more manageable sport if you and the guy you're rolling with agree.
Right. Yeah, I get that. Anything now active?
Not a lot, man.
No?
I do some working out, and that's about it. My youngest son's 10. So my kids are 28, 26, 25, and then 10. He just turned 10 a couple days ago. So he plays football. I help out with all his sports.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so coaching football right now, baseball. When he played basketball, I helped out with that, but he's not a big basketball guy. He's a thicker kid than I ever was.
Right
Big
on.
boy.
What about your older kids' sports or anything like that?
No, they didn't really play sports.
No.
No, it wasn't their thing.
What about when you were a cop and them growing up? Do you feel that you missed out on a lot of things where
I did. Now, fortunately, I was always in not always, but for 15 of my 21 years, I think is what it was, I was in some kind of specialty unit. So it afforded a little more flexibility than the beat guys.
right?
But when I was on the beat, yeah, there was a lot of things missed that you just had no control over. And even on the other stuff, you get call outs, you get things you're wrapped up in that you think you're going to get done by a certain time, and it always goes over, never fails.
Right.
So that's been the one of the biggest blessings with me going through this and forced to sit on the sideline is a total different experience with my youngest than I have with my older three. I almost feel like I ripped them off.
That's what I was getting ready to
Yeah,
ask.
it's almost a guilt feeling. It's great, but then the other half, he's like, oh, man, did I
Did-
mess up?
Do your older kids ever say anything along those lines?
No, and they probably wouldn't. Even if they feel it, they
Yeah.
probably wouldn't say it.
Still good relationship with everyone?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Sibling wise, any of them in law enforcement?
No, but one's started a school. One's
Like started
started a school in California,
Oh, that's cool.
private school. One's a nurse, and then the other one deals with customer service.
Okay, right on.
So yeah, all of us are something with outreach to people.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
One of my sisters is a nurse. She's an amazing person. Yeah, she deals with a lot more stuff than I think I
Oh,
do
yeah.
with you.
My sister she did hospice for I think 10
Oh,
years.
man, that'd be rough.
Horrible. Yeah, I couldn't do it.
Build relationships with people that
You know we're dying.
yeah, in a very soon
Yeah.
manner. Man, that's rough. All locally? Still live locally besides the one in California?
Yeah.
Okay. How's the school going for her?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it a Christian-based private school? Or?
Yeah, it's got Christian Foundation. Yeah.
Awesome.
Legacy Christian, is that right? Legacy Christian. Yeah.
Okay. And then, so you get hired by Louisville, first police
in
job?
2000. In 2000, we had Louisville Police and Jefferson County Police inside Jefferson County. 2003, we merged into one department, Metro Louisville Police.
How'd that go?
It was a fight for years because they said the only thing they got out of it, the county guys. So the city guys dealt with the inner city,
Mhm.
right? I mean, the inner city. It wasn't. We didn't have suburbs. We didn't have anything. Everything was in the city, in the chaos. We had the larger department, but they got paid more. They had nicer equipment because city, county. It's just the way it went. So they complained the only thing they got when we merged was a belt buckle because we had the Santa Claus belt buckle with the leather gear, and we got the raise. So they were always bitter. And until it took, I'm not kidding, it took probably 10, 12 years for a lot of those older guys to fade out before things became cohesive.
Was that a state mandate or was what
No,
was the reason?
it was just a local vote where they
Wow.
told the citizens you're going to get better trash service, you're going to get better all this. It never panned out. The county got ripped off on that deal. The city got more money is what happened because they had the tax base. Because when you got your inner city, you didn't have a huge tax base. You had a tax suck. They take all your money, but they don't want to give any of it. So the tax base is out in the metro area. So they brought all that money in is all they did.
I can't believe that vote.
Went through?
Yeah.
Well, they promised them the world. And you know how it is. We've seen that nowadays.
Yeah.
No matter what side you're on, they promise you everything.
Yeah.
A little.
Yeah.
So bait and switch. And, it was a weird time because they mandated some people out. It's like the guys who love the city, when they did it, they would mandate some of them out to the boonies, the county area. And they hated it.
So guys that enjoyed working the rougher areas, then they would,
Mhm.
and then how did supervision work there? So who was the top dog now? Was it the chief or
They had a new chief.
brand new
Brand
outsider?
new chief. Yeah, got rid of the two old ones. And,
Did he come from outside too?
oh, yeah. Robert White from Colorado.
That would be the worst job in the world.
Yeah.
That would be so. Dude, I don't even know.
It was a time, and
Man,
we all voted. The FOP did the vote for the cars, the color scheme, because they had gray, we had white. And people on the inside said the cars that came back were black and white because there was three options: gray, white, or black. And the city didn't want black. It said it looked too aggressive, so we went with gray. It was really weird. Now they're starting to get black cars. It's so bizarre how things just
Interesting.
kind of come
yeah,
full circle.
interesting. So You're a new guy though, probably keeping
Oh, I didn't care.
like head down. Just
I would have paid to go to work at that point.
Yeah.
I was having a blast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Work patrol mainly.
Patrol for first 5 years on late watch,
Okay.
midnight to 8. We had the horrible 6-2 rotation, 6 days on, 2 off.
It's rough.
And then every like third and fourth week you had 3 days off. I can't remember how it worked, but it was tough because you get off at 8, court started at 9, and you're busy on late watch, a lot of arrests. So court all the time. You go to court at 9 a.m., you're exhausted, ready to go to sleep. And the attorneys would try to wait you out till 11 or 12 to see if you go home. That way they could dismiss the case.
Oh, man.
It was bad. You'd get written up if you were late, but the defense attorneys could come in whenever they wanted.
Interesting.
It wasn't in our favor at all.
What kind of stuff did you do outside of work to keep your mind off of the job?
I didn't have much time then or money.
Okay.
3 small kids, working late watch, sleeping during the day. A lot of the days I would get up and go like at noon or 1 and go work an off-duty job till 4 or 5, come home, eat dinner, put the kids to bed, get ready for it, do it again.
Sounds like the most typical young guys.
Yeah.
I guess you had 3
Trying to keep
kids.
your head above
Yeah.
water.
I guess you had 3 kids though. That makes the dynamic a little different than most guys.
Yeah,
are
but
doing.
they were trained well, man. They wouldn't wake me up.
Really?
Yeah, and if like court would call, like if I didn't go, because back then you could skip court and it wasn't as big now. Now the guys get written up or suspended or whatever if you don't go to court. And the court person would call and they go, "Let me speak to your dad." Like, nope, he's asleep. They wouldn't wake me up. So it was perfect.
That's amazing. That's cool. Very cool.
Law enforcement, first responders, military veterans. We see things and put our body through stuff that no one else in society has to deal with. We are good at coping with it mentally, but it still takes a toll on our body. Hormone replacement therapy is a great way to keep your body functioning as it should. And I'm not talking about walking around looking like you're Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just the typical body that we need to function in society with mental health, mental clarity, performance in all aspects of life. I have several family members and friends that have turned to hormone replacement therapy in order to produce a better life for themselves and their family. We are thrilled to partner with HPTRT, veteran and first responder owned company that knows what we are looking for and what we need. They actually care about the first responders, they actually care about veterans. They know what we're going through, and they are willing to help us in any facet of life, not only with the hormone replacement therapies, but also medical doctors that have partnered with major pharmacies across the country and willing to do any type of telehealth that you need. If you're feeling sick and you want to lay on your couch and do a teleconference, they will send medications to major pharmacies that they have partnered with. So if you need any type of medical assistance, from hormone replacement therapy all the way up until you just feel like shit and need some telehealth, HPTRT is the place to go. Use code RED, R-E-D,
to get 10%.
So 5 years, and then
Then
how was like mobility within that department? Was getting rank or anything along there, was that difficult to get, especially with everyone
No,
together?
at the time we had about 1,300 members on the department.
Massive.
So, the larger department, the more possibilities you have. People leaving, people retiring, people going to different spots. So there's a lot of movement. And we were told in the academy, go somewhere every 3 to 5 years to keep everything rejuvenated because you'll get burned out. And so fortunately, that's kind of the plan I took. After 5 years, I went to Flex Unit, which is basically a narcotics unit in a division. We have 8 divisions. I did that for 4.5 years. Then I took the sergeant's test. I didn't take it till I was 9.5 years on. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to take it then. But my boss was like, "Have you seen who they're retiring?" I was like, or who they're promoting? I mean, yeah, a bunch of idiots. And she was like, "Well, do you want to work with them or for them?" I was like, it's a good point. So I took the test, got promoted, and went back to late watch for a year. And that was harder that time than the first time. And I'd been off of it. I was older. And it was like, first opportunity off, I went off.
So when you took promotion, did you couldn't stay within the division you are? You had
No.
to go to wherever like the opening was?
Wherever they wanted you.
Bigger departments that way. Smaller departments seem to promote within division. So if you have like a specialty and you're there, for example, my department, it's very rare that they force you to back. They kind of, even if they become top heavy at a moment, it's kind of short lived. But they'll promote you within because you have some. If you're working, I don't know, as in schools or in the task force or anything like that, they're not going to pass you up because you took more opportunity or more of your own time to do something to help them out. So they kind of let you stay wherever
So
you're
they
at.
reward you for the initiative.
Yeah. So like, yeah.
Their view on that was it's going to be hard to go back and supervise the guys you just worked with. They're not going to listen to you.
Kind
I
of
mean, they kind of know your skeletons. They've seen your work habit. They know what's up. They know who you are.
Kind of like the military. If
Yeah.
you get promoted, I was just having a podcast with Tyler, and he was telling me like that's how the military is. Like if you take a promotion, they move you to somewhere else because you literally were just boys having beers with them last night, and all of a sudden now you
Yeah.
drink.
They're not going to listen to you.
Yeah, well, they might listen to you, but they're
It's
also
kind of like we travel and speak, right?
Yep.
What's an expert? Somebody 100 miles away from home with a briefcase.
Yeah.
So you know they could have guys teach interdiction locally,
Right.
and go do it. But now you're an expert because you're from out of town. You've done it for so many years, and you're qualified at it, and you're good at it.
I
So-
don't know about all that stuff, but yeah,
Well, you must be. You've done it for a while.
I think I have people fleeced or something. I don't know. I get a lot of luck up there.
Yeah.
What was your favorite assignment?
It was probably the Viper unit. It was a violent crime unit.
Okay.
They started that in 2012. It was basically a street crimes unit. They had done away with street crimes probably 6 years prior because the community said they were too aggressive and making too big of a difference. Which they were. They were good. You know, they were looking for somebody. They found them. They were it. And so when crime started spiking again in 2012, they're like, we got to do something. Well, what worked in the past? This unit. We can't name it that because we said we were getting rid of it, so we were going to rebrand it, and that's what they did. And they brought us in, and it was the hardest I've worked on the police department, but the most fun. I mean, I had 5 guys under me. At one point, I had 10 guys under me for probably a year and a half because the other sergeants just couldn't hang. It wasn't their thing. So, I mean, it was intense. It was warrants every day. It was fighting people with guns every day. It was going after murderers and shooters and robbers every single day.
So nothing but violence, pretty
That's
much.
it. Violence.
So, and you were out there looking for wanted violent people, or you were out there proactively look? Okay,
Well, so if homicide, if they had a shooting, they called us. If there was a bank robbery or a business robbery, they called us, and it was instant. Okay, guys started hitting their informants, boom, 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 and those young guys that I was fortunate enough to have, it wasn't me. I just held the reins and tried to keep people from getting indicted or killed, and those guys were just amazing. I mean, they knew how to use social media, which drew a bunch of those idiots in. You know, all the fake female profiles. Those guys are so stupid. I mean, they just jump on them, and that's how we found a lot of them.
How long did you do that for?
3.5 years.
And how big was that division?
We had 25 detectives and 5 sergeants. One of the units, one of the groups of 5 and a sergeant was attached to the Marshall Task Force.
Okay.
So they did more of the federal criminals that they were looking for, and we did the local.
Hitting doors, like your own, or were you calling SWAT teams to do it?
No, we hit our own.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. If it hit a certain point in the matrix, SWAT come do it.
Okay.
But we probably hit 95% of them.
And then how long into your career when you started that?
That was 2012, so 12 years in.
Okay. And then you did it till 2015?
Yeah, the end right at 16.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was 2016 when I left there. I went back to we had new leadership. They came in and wanted to rebrand it again because they said communities complaining, and now you can only go in this area, you can only go in that area. And I was like, this ain't gonna work for me. You know, it works for somebody cool, but they totally ruined it. They totally destroyed that unit, and it's already disbanded since then.
How? So I'm sorry. When did you get hired? 2000.
2000.
You got hired,
Mhm.
and then what kind of dynamics did you see change within the administration? Like, did you guys hire a lot of outside chiefs, or was there a promotion within to be chief?
No, before it was promotion within.
Okay,
I mean, at some point they may have had an outside. I don't know about it.
I gotcha.
But from the time I started paying attention to the police department before I got on through, we've had it was all internal. In 2003, they brought an outsider in because they didn't want anybody from the city or anybody from the county, or they would show favoritism, or they felt they would. So they brought the outsider in. He did it for a while. Then we had a previous Louisville police major or assistant chief who had gone out to Arizona. He came back and was our chief. But the biggest change I saw in 2003 when they did this again, we had the civil service rank of captain. So we had officer, detective, sergeant, lieutenant, and then captain. We didn't have majors.
It was at. Are those all hard ranks, or are those from appointed positions?
No, they're all hard ranks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the beauty of the captain, because they were protected by the civil service because they'd taken the test, they'd gotten the promotion. They weren't just appointed and can be yanked. And the captains ran the divisions. And so each division, because it's in different areas of the city, need to be run differently. You know, you can't just stamp it and police the same way everywhere. It just doesn't work. And those guys, back then, you know how it was when you first came on, guys had 30, 40 years on. They just didn't leave. Now everybody's bailing as soon as they can.
Yeah.
So these captains had, 30, 35 years on, and they were basically the chief of those divisions. And if the chief sent something down and they disagree with it, they would headbutt. And usually the captain would win. The chief had ultimate say, but they ran the show. The captains did. That's who you feared. That's who
Yeah.
did your punishment. That's who everything answered to the captain. And in 2003, they realized they didn't have the power. The government, the mayor who runs the department, didn't have the power he wanted over the police department. And so they got rid of the captains. They let those guys attrition out. There was only a few of them left. And they got rid of those and made it appointed position of major. And not only did they do that, then they started promoting guys with 13, 14, 15 years on who couldn't leave. So then they really had them, because now I've promoted you. I'm giving you more money, more power, more title for your retirement job.
Yep.
Because that's what a lot of those guys are looking for, the retirement job.
Yep.
You do what I say. So now they're just puppets on the string. Majors don't have a lot of juice in our department anymore.
Because they're appointed. And so
At any point, if they defy what the chief says, what the mayor wants, they're not back down to lieutenant.
so they can go back down to lieutenant.
Right.
They're just not. But I got you. They're
They're embarrassed, the pay cut, all the things that come with it, the stigma. So a lot of them, plus they know who they're promoting.
I got you.
They're not promoting the guys who are going to push back too much.
No,
And I like some of them.
yeah.
It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is.
I feel like you need some of that. You need some within the administration that get along with the chief and don't have a lot of pushback. But you also feel, I don't know. I feel like if you're taking that promotion, it almost should be from within. Like guys are like, no, you need to be in that position. Guys that are working for you or with you, instead of just like an arbitrary, like, nope, you're going to be the guy.
Yeah.
From a chief's
So
perspective.
so if the public wants to complain, okay, it's not the guys it's not the boots on the
definitely
ground,
not.
because they have no say. It's the mayor's office pulling the strings.
Interesting. And how are things? All right, so we got up to 2005,
And then
2016, or
16.
16. My bad.
Then I went to back to a flex unit as a sergeant, which is the small narcotics unit in each division, just for a short period. And then I went up to major case narcotics in 2017.
And did you always, when you were going back and forth, did you always work a particular area, or were you bouncing around?
Bouncing around.
Okay. Nice
like-
areas, rough areas.
All rough except when I got promoted and went to late watch. It was a nice area.
I got you.
Yeah, I mean, it was boring. I
Yeah.
couldn't stand it. So I got out of there as quick as I could.
I'm sure you get going from stuff that, and if you like that kind of work where you're running and gunning, I guess, quote unquote, the whole shift, and then all of a sudden you get put in a position where you're begging for calls for service
Yeah.
at that point. Like,
Yeah, I went to a position where at 3 a.m. the streets rolled up, and I'm like, what do I do now? As an officer, you'd find a hole and kick back a little bit, but as the boss, you can't, because now you got to look out for everybody.
Right.
You're like, man, when's this shift going to end?
what's the population of that county, and what's like size wise, mileage wise?
Jefferson County?
Yeah.
If you look at the metropolitan area, which I think includes right at Southern Indiana, I think Louisville itself is like 760,000.
Okay.
And then if you look at the metropolitan area, which touches up to the outer counties, it's right at 1 million.
And then mileage wise that you guys covered.
Man, I don't know. I know the division I was in that was slow and horrible was 86 square miles. I know that. Yeah, but it was slow. Your busy ones are small.
Yeah.
But they're all compacted and everybody's together.
Yep.
I don't know exactly square. I know another one's 70 something miles. It's another slow division. And then it picks up from there, but it gets smaller as it gets busier.
So the further you get away from like metro, I'm sure it's getting bigger.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And then this whole time that what is your go-to outside of work? I know you said early on you didn't have a lot of time, but anything that took your mind off law enforcement, any hobbies, anything like that?
Yeah, I'm just a family guy.
All right.
I've always envied guys that have hobbies,
Mhm.
because I don't really have a go-to hobby.
4
Is-
kids, right?
Yeah, 4 kids. Yeah, paying the bills. That's a hobby.
Right.
No, it was like I didn't love anything enough to commit a lot of time and money to. I enjoy a lot of things, a whole bunch of things, but I don't like anything enough to dedicate a lot of time and energy to it.
Okay.
I like golf, but I ain't going to spend a lot of money or time on it.
I got you.
Stuff like that.
And then, so outside of work, what kind of stuff were you doing? Just all family time?
Family time. Back in the day, was UFC stuff with guys.
Like-
we'd have parties.
Like watching
people
walk the house.
house.
Oh, yeah, I got
stuff
you.
like that.
Okay.
Yeah, there was, again, a lot of little things. I'd go fishing here and there. We'd, go ride 4-wheelers. We do different things, but it wasn't like, there wasn't
This
that
is what I
one
do
go-to.
every week.
Yeah.
Just to
Yeah.
okay. To take my mind
Very
off things.
balanced, very, just whatever's happening, that's what we're going to do.
All right. And then from 2016 in your career, what would we do?
So I was in narcotics
Oh,
up until
major.
yeah, major case narcotics up until well, I was up there till I retired, but I left the actual part where you're the hands-on doing the warrants, doing the wiretaps, doing all that stuff, and went to partial interdiction at the end of 2019, September of 2019. Because I told my wife, I said, "Man, I've been doing this almost 20 years. Everything's been run and gun except for that one little short period." And I'm like, "My time's, you only get so many chances at this stuff. Eventually, my number's going to come up. So I'm going to start slowing down, pacing off." I said, "But if I go to partial interdiction, at least I'm still in narcotics. I can go do warrants anytime I want. I can go sit up on houses for people anytime I want. I can go help out, but not attached, but not bound to it.
So you're still getting your
I get my fix.
fix. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
But
and then I'm going to go and I say, what's worst going to happen? I'm going to get paper cut, open a box. So it's life's funny how
And then
it doesn't go the way you want.
I'm gonna backtrack a little bit. How did you meet your wife?
Through friends.
Okay.
Yeah, I would gotten separated, going through a divorce, and a friend introduced us, and
So like
that was it.
mutual friends.
Yeah.
And then previous wife. We can cut this out if you don't want.
No. We're still very.
Yeah, that's to say like cool, good friends.
She texts me all the time. We talk. Yeah.
All right, that's good. Wife born and raised in Kentucky too.
Yeah, she's a little girl.
All right.
She's actually born in Colorado, but she came home when she was like 2 because her dad died of cancer when she was 2.5. So
Okay.
they moved back to Louisville.
Right on. Was she married before or no?
No.
Okay.
No kids.
Okay.
So I had to give her enough.
All right. We got about 15 minutes left or so, and I don't want to go too in depth in it. You could just be open and honest, and if you want to stop talking about whatever, this is more not about that whole incident in general, but you kind of led into it with the partials. The whole paper cut thing is kind of ironic,
Yeah.
That doesn't define you as who you are.
No.
You're that's why I wanted to lay everything out here about your kids, your family, your hobby, everything else, because that's who you are. And that's what we want to
I was
focus
told
on.
by a pretty smart guy who's successful in business and life, and he was like, "Don't be Uncle Rico," off Napoleon Dynamite. I don't know if you ever seen
yeah.
who that he never left that.
The high
I was going to be a championship quarterback, man. That was it. And his whole life revolved around that.
Uh-huh.
Living in his van, and that's all he did was throw football. And he was obsessed with it. He was like, "Don't be that.
That's awesome. I like that.
Be more than that. That's just a little bump in the road." And
That's fine because you said Uncle Rico. That's what I thought of, but you probably saw my face. I was like,
Yeah.
that's what he's referring to.
Yep.
But yeah, no, that makes sense. I like that saying. And even that's a small bump. That's not who you are. It's a moment in time, and everything else is so much more meaningful. Saying that, if you want to talk about it, we're more.
yeah, man. So I guarantee anything that your viewers have heard, if they haven't seen me on other podcasts or seen me live, then they're going to know what I'm going to say. But it was everything you read in the media or thought you knew, flip it, and that's the truth. And that's where the evidence is at. That's where the testimony's at. That's where everything's at. And for whatever reason, I mean, we know the reasons, but we're not going to get political. But the city decided it was going to take a stand over here from day one, and they never budged off that. And it was unfortunate because, you talked about if government ran like a business, if our mayor had been a CEO of a major corporation and invited people from out of town to come in and destroy his business and his people and his livelihood, he would get fired.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't even get
Instead,
that far.
it gets spun, and somehow we're the enemy and we're the bad guys, and he's the hero for bringing all these people in to express their feelings. And so that was very disheartening because the thing you think, I'm doing all this for my city that I love, that I was raised in, that I've done nothing but give. You think, okay, I'm going to have a little support. And there was support, but those people in 2020 were scared to death to speak up. And I don't blame them. They didn't sign up for it. They're just trying to make a living and go on with their life. But the people with the voices chose not to. The people with the voices chose to jump on what was popular and what was happening during that time period with the whole white cops are evil and, we're out looking to assassinate any black person we can. And everybody that had influence in our city for whatever reason or in the country, look at Oprah, Beyonce, Diddy, all the right people, right, that are on the right side of the law that everybody listens to, they jumped on the bandwagon and poured millions of dollars into it and wrote letters and took out articles and billboards. And I mean, it was mind blowing the amount of people that joined forces to attack on something that was just a false narrative. And you wondered, I kept thinking, okay, this has got to end, right?
Like the truth has to come out.
It's going to come out, right?
Yeah.
We couldn't talk. So it wasn't going to come from me. Plus, I'm nobody. I didn't have a voice.
Right.
I didn't want to be anybody. I was happy being a cop, being not known, doing my job, going home to my family. That's what I wanted to do my whole life. That was it. I don't want to be on podcasts. I don't want to be talking in front of crowds. I didn't want to, but somebody had to.
Right.
It came to the point and it was like, well, if nobody's going to speak for us, once I was allowed to, I'm going to speak. And it's unfortunate that our department, our city still has not stepped up and said those things that were spread back then were all false. Not one time have they done that. So that's kind of the disheartening part. And it really opens your eyes to a lot of things. It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz when you see behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
You see all this stuff and you're like, oh, okay. Who else does this happen to? And I'll tell you what, I'm not the only one. It's across the country, man. I have guys reaching out to me that are just getting just bulldozed by their cities and their departments and hung out to dry. And I was fortunate, through our FOP, we had the legal defense fund. A lot of guys don't have legal defense funds.
We do.
And it's amazing. And I'm like, I've talked to several guys who've gone bankrupt, lost their houses, moved back in with their parents because they're getting charged. And they have to hire these attorneys to try to stay out of prison.
Yeah.
And their departments are like, good luck, wash your hands of you. So, I can look at my situation two ways. Oh man, worst luck in the world, poor me. But my luck's actually good. I got shot in the femoral artery and I'm 100%. I'm good. I'm physically good. I'm mentally good. So I've been blessed.
Yeah.
It wasn't unlucky. I've just been blessed. It was just a bump and here we are. So I can either be bitter about it or we can go help other people.
Me looking as an outsider, I would think where you grew up, where you went to school, all of these things and that community relationship that you had, I'm shocked that there was not more activists, like community activists, like people involved in the community, not necessarily politicians, just people that are known that came out to defend you. Like that's not who this person is or
But
anything.
they were
Like that.
getting canceled during that time.
That's true.
Even when I did Strahan's interview on 2020 and Good Morning America, and it was very contentious. He came in and it was just sit down and it was a little elbow bump because he wouldn't fist bump, because COVID and they had us far apart. And it was 3.5 hours of nonstop. Bam, 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 bam. He was coming at me like a defense attorney, just shooting off. And I'm like, all right. But by the end, I think I'd won him over because I corrected him on a lot of stuff. Made him look foolish on a lot of stuff that there's no way they'll ever play. and at the end, he was like, man, I like you. He said, other than the fact you're a Cowboys fan, but I like you. And so we laughed and whatever, went his way. Then the next morning, he just totally dogs me on TV. And people were mad at him. And I'm like, look, that's fine, whatever. I think it was a cowardly move, but I understand it from a business point where if he goes on there and says, he actually had some good points and he said this and that was correct, and he would have got canceled. He lost his job. People would have hated him, threatened him. And so again, was it the manly thing to do? No. But I understand why he did it. Not saying it's right, but I understand it. And that's kind of how the whole community was at the time.
Yeah.
When you're in the middle of this firestorm, there's very few brave people. Very few people willing to risk career, freedom, any of that stuff to stand up for what's right.
Yeah, it's
disheartening.
Especially, I don't know, me, same profession, looking at it, like, I feel that I try to do everything the right way for the right reason and give back. And I'm sure that you're very similar in that aspect. And then I don't know how many years you had on at the time, but you give all that time.
Right at 20.
And then that moment of time where you did nothing wrong, yet it's all turned upside down. So all these great checks that you put in your career and deposit all this goodness, that one thing, it just sucks, man. I feel for you.
It all goes on who sets the narrative.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and that's what when I teach leadership classes now to chiefs and stuff.
That's amazing.
That's the huge thing. And you've got to get out and set the narrative, set the truth.
Right.
But the narrative. If your guy's messed up, get out in front of it and own it. Because the more you own the negative, the more they're going to believe you when it's time, when your feet's really to the fire.
Right.
You go, look, man, I was honest about all these bad things. This one's actually right. And you talk about putting checks in the bank, but we see it. It comes and it's CYA. Everything's CYA. Everything is. And nobody wants to get out and say, oh, we messed up here. Instead, it's always, well, let's find a way to mitigate this. Let's start soft landing. Let's do just tell them what it is. Rip the Band-Aid off and people respect you more.
I think so too. I think the moment you come out and you lay it all out there, and right or wrong, I think being the transparency thing is huge in law enforcement. And the more time goes on, I think the more and more transparent we should be. I tell a lot of guys, they're always like, well, where should I go work if I want to leave this? I'm like, you can't put a price on a supportive administration and supportive politicians. You can't. Like, you could pay me $100,000 more and say, that chief or that mayor, I would be like, no, I'll stay at my job. I'll start making this, like, that peace of mind going home, that I do everything in my mind the right way for the right reasons, and I have a supportive administration and a supportive politicians. Like, you can't put a price on it. There's no way.
Well, you look at my previous department's a great example. They have jumped the pay significantly since I left because they couldn't get anybody, and they still can't get anybody.
Still,
No, I think their last class was 13 people, 14 people.
and they're
That's horrible.
probably through attrition. They're like, that's not even scratching the surface.
Right. And probably of those 13, probably like 5 are qualified that probably wouldn't have got on when we went through the process, because the standards have dropped so much. Are you breathing? Do you have too many felonies? Are you too bad of a guy? Okay, we'll take you. But that's gonna come back to bite them
And
nationwide.
I
We're
agree.
going to have some horrible cops in 10, 15 years down the road.
I feel worse for the citizens that are like, you're paying your tax dollars, you're expecting a certain level of service and professionalism, and then all of a sudden you're not having cops there. Like,
Maybe we'll go to police vouchers. People can pick them up just like school. People pick who they want to police their community. And they'll take care of them.
yeah, when I got hired, I remember I tested for 5 years before I got hired, and 4 with my current department. Some of my own doing, like I talked about. I'm pretty transparent about it. But I remember, like, the same guys, but there'd be like one position open, there'd be 60, 70, 80 guys there. And I'm like, this is like, you're looking like, he's better than I am. He's better than I am.
Yeah.
Like, he's going to smoke me in the PT. Like, he's probably smarter. Like, but you start to see him fall off. And like, it just took me that long. And I was testing every weekend to try to get on the job. Is something that I really wanted to do, especially after 9/11. It was something that I really aspired to try to make a difference and have an impact in some way, shape, or form. But I remember, like, seeing them fall off. And now I look at it. My department still does pretty decent on recruitment. But still, we're not getting 50, 60, 70 guys that are going through the interview process. A lot of those guys, even if we get that many applying for 3 or 4 positions, we're seeing them fall off during the written or physical or even the initial interview.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're ending, instead of having 70 in an admin interview, we're having 10.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy.
So now you're not picking the best candidates. You're picking the ones who survived.
Yeah, I mean, for us so far, we've keeping a decent standard where we haven't
good.
fluctuated a lot on the physical standards or even the the written interviews. The written tests. So it makes me happy. We're kind of on still a steady trajectory. Do you want to talk about your book? Your dad brought it out here.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I'll show it real quick. 12 Seconds in the Dark. It's if you want the factual account, all right? You can get on Amazon, Walmart.com, Target, Books A Million, whatever. But yeah, that's got up to that point when I wrote in 21. A lot's changed since then. I mean, they paid the guy who shot me $2 million as they showed us the door. Bizarre world we live in, just backwards.
Yeah.
So again, either you can be bitter about that stuff or you can figure out ways to change it. And so that's what this is about. It's just kind of opening the public's eyes to, hey, here's the truth. There's stuff in here that verifies or backs up what I say. It's not me just being a blowhard. And it's an easy read. Dumb cop wrote it, so it doesn't take you long to read it.
That's the kind of reads that I need for sure. What there was something in the news recently about that. Do you know anything about it? I'm trying to remember.
Which part? Okay, so there were so the officers that actually wrote the warrant, us that served it we didn't have anything to do with the warrant. They just needed bodies to serve a warrant, and we got, hey, can you help us? Sure, we'll help. So it was really just one of those situations where I guess you're just meant to be there, because you didn't initiate it, you didn't ask for it, it just kind of happened. But those guys did some inappropriate things in writing of the warrant. They actually saw him physically go in. They've got it on camera, empty-handed, come out with a postal package and go to the trap house, went straight there. Which in parcel, that's what they do. They ship it to girlfriend's house, vacant house, grandma's house, but they never put it in their name because they're smarter than that, right? You're gonna put it in Joe Smith's name. So if the cops show up and they go, "This ain't my package. I don't know where this thing came from. Here, take it. Oh, I don't want it." Plausible deniability. And these detectives that wrote the warrant were more inexperienced. They didn't ask enough questions, and they put a phrase in that warrant that said the postal inspector verified packages were coming to Jamarcus Glover to that address. Instead of simply saying, we've got it on video, we've got pictures of it, and he went to the trap house, and this is indicative of trafficking and XYZ and explaining it. So they took a shortcut, and it came back to bite them, and naturally that makes us all look bad, right?
No, I agree.
We're all dirty cops now. That was one of the big narratives. I'm like, I didn't even, nothing to do. I don't even know who these people are, you know? So
Right.
it's a sad situation. But one of the charges that the feds had taken out on those officers was they were going to be responsible for the death of Breonna Taylor, basically. That was part of because they said they wrote an invalid warrant, even though on all warrants per the Supreme Court, if there's something in there that's not factual or inaccurate, they take that out, then they do a PC hearing to see if there's still enough probable cause in that warrant to see if it's valid. And if it is, the warrant's still valid. Now they can still get in trouble for what they said over here, or that's just eliminated because it was an accident, because accidents do happen. But there would have been enough PC in that warrant still for that warrant to be valid. It doesn't change that. But it looks bad. I mean, the optics are horrible on it, and they're huge on optics. So they're saying because of that, we should have never been there. Therefore, Breonna will be alive. Which you can kind of put that together in a very loose case. I get it, whatever. Even though she was in the game, there was enough PC. But if you want to go that route, that's fine. Say that. But we finally had a federal judge who had the courage to look at the case and go, no, Kenneth Walker is legally responsible for Breonna's death because he shot at the police as they came to the door. Okay, it's common sense, right?
Yeah,
it's what we've seen our whole careers.
Right, you would think.
Now all of a sudden, because of 2020, everything's backwards, and he came in and put a little more common sense to it. Now the feds, the DOJ has introduced an indictment on those guys to bring that charge back, saying the judge was wrong, and they're fighting it. So
I didn't. So I knew about that initial one. I didn't know that there was another indictment that came after that.
yeah,
Man, do you talk to those guys? Are they doing okay?
I don't talk to the guys who wrote the warrant.
Fair enough.
And it's not because I don't like them.
Yeah.
They just did some stuff that I just don't agree with.
And then how are you physically, mentally, everything? You good?
Everything's good there. Yeah,
Awesome,
no
man.
complaints. And Brett, the guy who was with me that night, who shot through the windows, he's got another trial coming up here in 2 weeks, another federal trial. So we had the state trial. He got acquitted. The feds charged him with the same thing, plus added civil rights violations. It was a hung jury, 10 to acquit, 2 to find guilty. They're going after him again. So it's a never-ending story here.
How's he doing?
Man, rough. I mean,
I can
4.5 years of this hanging over your head, your life on hold, and your
Stress,
freedom.
anxiety. Through
Yeah. It's not right. The punishment's the process. I think Dan Bongino says that, and it's true. It's all about punishing you along the way. So if they don't get the indictment, your life's still in shambles and screwed, and you can't get a job. And there's a lot of things that people just don't understand what goes into this, and the other people that are affected besides just the officer, the families, the friends.
That's
Everything gets imploded, and you got to rebuild. And people don't understand that. I mean, from children, death threats on my kids. I mean, it's just it was a tough time, and that's what the public's got to understand, that we are human.
Yeah, that's
The people around us are human. And if somebody that works with us made a mistake and they're being held accountable for that mistake, let the process play out.
Right.
But don't demonize everybody involved, because it's not accurate.
No, and that's my biggest thing. Like, we have to look at things objectively. Like, even as cops, like, just because you hang out with this person, it could be my friend that I've known since 6th grade. Because he does dumb shit doesn't mean I'm doing dumb shit too. And law enforcement, that's the same thing. Like, if I like to think that cops aren't out there maliciously doing things. Does it happen? Sure, but I think that's a very, very small portion. Do mistakes happen that are unmalicious? Yeah, but if that's
It's human nature.
yeah, we all make
We're
mistakes.
humans.
We all make
If you
mistakes.
want robots, AI's coming, baby. Be careful.
That's
what you wish
scary. Yeah,
for.
that's gonna be really scary, because you're not gonna have any discretion. It's black and white, this and that. But if that individual is being held for, if it's malicious, good. It is what it is. That cop shouldn't be a cop anymore. But if it's not malicious and it's an honest mistake, and we're holding them accountable, why are we lumping us all together and then that same bucket just because we wear a badge?
We've got 2 Ford plants here, right? The truck plant and the car plant. If you're putting something on that's vital to the car running, right? A wheel, and you're lazy, you don't do your job right, or you're a drug addict or whatever, you don't tighten that wheel up. I put the door panel on, the other guy put the windshield in, the other guy put the muffler on. Everybody plays a part in doing it. But then the wheel falls off and kills a family of 4. Are we all guilty?
Right. No,
But that's how they do it.
Yeah.
We're all the Ford workers, and so
it's rough.
shut the whole plant down.
It's rough.
Reimagine it.
Hopefully some of this stuff starts to change, and they realize that we're all human, and the profession that we picked doesn't define who we are. We close every podcast. So we teach for the company called Justice Academy. What is your definition of justice? Of you of all people? Well,
That's funny you say that, because the biggest burr in my saddle during this whole thing has been, justice for Breonna Taylor. And I asked, define justice for me. What is your version of justice? Because yours is different than mine. And people are like, well, what do you think justice be? I'm like, look, that's not up for, number one, for us to decide. That's up for God to decide. If we start placing justice or defining justice on who should be, what punishment should be for what, when it's a very murky situation, not a cut and dry black and white deal, that's not for me to say. I hate injustices, but for me to define justice, I think it's just doing the right thing at the right time with the right people. It's not treating people like you want to be treated. I mean, it's the golden rule, right?
Yep.
And so once you go outside of that and you violate someone else's civil liberties, civil rights, whatever it may be, that's an injustice.
I like it. Little spin on it, but I like it, man. I appreciate you. Appreciate you inviting me into your house. Coming here to meet the
Thanks
family.
for conforming
Yeah.
to us. We had a lot of back and forth trying to figure this
Yeah.
out.
I'm glad that we got it done, though, man. And thanks for joining beyond the barrel, even though there's no barrel around. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. I do. Thank you, man. I do.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you.